So I'll start off, I'll introduce myself. My name is Steven, and I was an opiate addict for about 10 years. 5 years on the poppy tea and pills, and then about 5 years on the heroin. So I didn't go straight to the top. So this is what heroin addiction looks like. It's not always the guy living in the cardboard box in Skid Row. This is also what it looks like. It's not just the, lady screaming and running around in circles on the subway platform. This is also what it looks like. There's many, many faces of opiate addiction, and it doesn't discriminate. So, for someone like me to get mixed up into it, I was born, I'm the poster boy of privilege. I was born in an affluent part of Massachusetts, had a really good upbringing, never wanted for anything, loving parents. Went to college and had every advantage, every opportunity that a human being could possibly have. And I still got mixed up in it. So, it can happen to anybody. So I kind of wanted to, before I kind of really get into my story, we call this an opiate epidemic, but make no mistake, Mark, this is not an epidemic. This is an apocalypse. Since they started keeping track of the data 22, 23 years ago, we've had over 1 million people overdose from drugs. The vast majority, 80 some odd % with opioids. Now, that's a wild number. And if you think about that, 1 million people, that's the population of Delaware. So just everyone in Delaware just vanished off the face of the earth. It's a wild number. And then now we have 100,000 people a year that are overdosing. Again, the vast majority on opioids. And these are really big numbers, and it's unacceptable. So what's the answer? And I don't know the answer. I don't know if there is an answer, but I do know what isn't the answer. What isn't the answer is viewing this as a criminal justice matter. That's ass backwards. We're going about it completely the wrong way. So if you're going to criminalize addicts are going to have drugs on them. They're drug addicts. They get popped 2, 3, 4 times for, nonviolent person, get thrown in the clinker. Well, is that going to improve them, or are they going to come out now they've learned violence and now they're worse off? So, I think there could be a very strong argument made for the decriminalization of all drugs. And I'm not going to explicitly endorse that, but I think there could be a strong argument for that. So we need to focus more on, a better treatment, but also prevention. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to come on your show, Mark, is I think you're part of the solution, having these difficult conversations and giving a voice to the voiceless and giving somebody a megaphone who's like, hey, society is ignoring me here, but, this is the shit that's really happening. So, what you're doing is part of the solution. And what else can we do? I remember on Joe Rogan, you were saying, we're learning all these things in school, like trigonometry. Everyone's got a damn phone in their pocket. You just pull out your phone and do it. So do we need to learn geometry and trigonometry, or perhaps we could be better served using those resources and teachers to talk about what do drugs do to your body? What does heroin do to your brain? And I think we would be better served.
And how to be better parents as well.
That's where it starts.
So you can raise
That's number one.
Kids who know how to love themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And addicts, they gotta want it. You can't want it for another addict. They have to genuinely want it. So there's a lot of collateral damage, and there's no magic wand. So I think looking into future generations, it starts with the family and school and just awareness. So addicts, myself included, they're not bad people. An addict is a normal, ordinary person who made an extraordinarily bad decision. Series of bad decisions in some cases. But that shouldn't necessarily equate into the opiate death sentence that it so often does. So I'm here to let everyone know, especially the addicts who are watching this, there is hope and there is recovery and there is an afterlife. And everyone deserves to live a normal, ordinary life with beautiful, loving relationships with other people. And if you take one thing away from this interview, I'd like to say that the opposite of addiction is connection. My friend Dagny is a therapist, and she told me that, and the truth of that statement really resonated with me. And I just find it's so important for addicts to make those connections with other human beings and their community, whether it's NA, people at their NA classes, or AA, or family members, or friends. So it's all about connection. So that's enough of the preaching. Now I'll just kind of tell my story of how I got all mixed up in this horrible business.
Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up outside of Boston, a little town called Northborough, kind of near Worcester, central Massachusetts. So when I was about 33 or 34, I decided I've always loved to travel, always loved to travel. So I flew to Chile to go hike around Patagonia and Torres del Paine National Park and Tierra del Fuego. Wanted to go to Buenos Aires. So my friend lived a couple hours south of Santiago. So he picked me up at the airport. We go to his house. He had been living there for years. And we go into his backyard. And he's got a huge poppy garden. And I kind of knew what they were, but I'd certainly never seen them in real life. They were like 7 feet tall, just big bulbs. And I'm like, what are you doing with these? He said, well, I make poppy tea, and it's really fun, and do you want to try some? And I said, yes, I did. I'm always down for a good time in those days. So we drank the poppy tea, and that was the first time that I slipped into the warm bubble bath. And all the addicts say it. It's the big blanket that comes over you. And it's like God is licking the inside of your skull. And for me, it always feels like I'm wearing a tuxedo made entirely of live hummingbirds. As I'm tiptoeing through the tulips, holding hands with Jesus, as unicorns are prancing around you and big swirly lollipops and double rainbows. It's an extraordinary high, but that's the first. And then you spend the rest of your addiction trying to chase that virgin high. And it's madness. After a few months, you're just maintaining an equilibrium. And I'm sure you've heard that 1,000 times. And then after that, you're just trying not to get sick. So you're spending all your time and money and resources because you're afraid of going through withdrawals. And, it's like getting a root canal. You dread it. But you do it and you say, wow, I wish I had done that sooner. So anyone can do it. I never, ever thought that I could quit. I smoked heroin. And I never thought that I could quit. And I did. So I'm living proof that there is that afterlife. So anyways, that was the first time. Ended up going all around South America. Went back to his house, did poppy tea every day for another week. And as he's driving me to the airport, he gave me a couple websites on the dark web where you could order dried poppy bulbs. And they clamped down on all that shit. There's no more doing that. But, 10, 12 years ago, when I got back to the States, I'm ordering pounds of the dried bulbs. And you run it through a blender, steep it in a French press, and voila, you have basically heroin juice. And it's really powerful stuff. And it was an instant addiction, and years go by, years go, and I'm drinking poppy tea pretty much every day. And the only person I hid it from was my girlfriend, because she was a therapist, and somehow, I deceived her. She never found out, but I was very open about it with my friends. And of course, I get one of my other friends addicted. So if I didn't have bulbs, he would have the bulbs, and our code word was meetings. We would have a meeting. And we called ourselves the Salt Lake City chapter of T-Men. Just ridiculous, right? And the meetings, hey, come over at 7 o'clock sharp for a meeting. The meeting was getting all fucked up, drinking poppy tea and margaritas and beer, waking up at 8 in the morning with the TV still on. So we certainly thought we were the lion's pajamas. But it started to fundamentally change my personality. I was losing weight, and I got really edgy. When I wasn't drinking the poppy tea, I was just edgy. I was impatient and grumpy, and I was only happy when I was drinking the poppy tea. So then I made this ludicrous decision that I'm going to go to the golden triangle. I'm going to go to the source. And heroin was always the red line. I'm never going to cross that, but I wanted to go to the Golden Triangle in northern Laos, which is the opiate production capital of the world. And I just wanted to see the fields of poppies. And so, and go right to the source and smoke pure opium and drink like really fresh poppy tea. So I fly to Vietnam, buy a moped, cruise up to across the border, cruise up to the Golden Triangle in Laos. And I know I'm getting close. And I go into a bar. I thought it was a bar, and it was an opium den. And it's what you would expect an opium den to look like, just a bunch of people nodding out. There's pillows all over the floors, low-lying tables, candles flickering, jazz music. And you could order mushrooms, poppy tea, opium. I'm sure there were harder things if you wanted them. I ended up spending about 3 days in that den. There's a hotel next door, and decided let's take this party on the road. So I bought a blob of this like really pure opium. And I go further into the triangle, and I'm going up this dirt road, and this other kid's coming down like really fast, and he's waving. And he said, "Don't go any further." I said, "No, I heard there's fields up there." And he said, "Well, there are as far as the eye can see." But as soon as he went up there, 2 guys with machine guns came out and made him, either side of the road at the edge of the jungle in the fields. Okay, we're not welcome here. We went too far. So I turned around, and I ended up spending about 10 or 11 weeks on that moped, and I'm just smoking opium every day, re-upping at the opium dens, drinking poppy tea, and just, it's still innocent fun, and I had no idea that this was a prelude to this nasty heroin addiction that it would eventually morph itself into. So I'm going up further and further north, and I got to smoke some opium in the jungle. There's a little trail, and there's all these butterflies, like hundreds of these beautiful, huge, colorful butterflies, and they're all landing on me, and I'm smoking opium in the jungle next to this river. And, that would have been good even if I wasn't smoking opium, but, I just was under the impression that opiates made everything better. So it's a thing in northern Laos. There's a butterfly hatch at the end of the monsoon, and people from all over the world, butterfly enthusiasts or photographers, I didn't know it. I thought God was providing me with this moment of pure magic. Anyways, long story short, I continue to go north. This is where things got a little sideways. My guidebook my guidebook had said the most beautiful, eye-poppingly gorgeous part of all of Laos is way, way in the north by the Myanmar border. But it's an out and back. It's just a road that goes up there, and there's no tour buses. It's like potholes within potholes. It's just a gravel road. And really the only way you can do it is to take a bike. So, okay, I'm going to take 5 days to go up there, smoking opium the whole time, of course, and then turn around, take 5 days to come back. But every time I looked at the map, I could see there was this little town not too far from the Myanmar border, and it's still in Laos, with roads going to it from the other side, but no roads going to it from that side. I ended up running into this guy from Germany a couple of days before I got to the Myanmar border, and it's gorgeous, just insanely pretty country. And I said, God, I wish I could get to that town so I could do the loop instead of having to backtrack. And he said, oh, no, you can. He said, you shouldn't, definitely not by yourself. But he said, once you get to the Myanmar border, there's a trail that runs along the Mekong River. And he said, he had talked to people who had done it. And they said it's 10 or 12 hours and it's dangerous and you're out there in the middle of the jungle. But you can do it, and then you can get to the next town or village. Excuse me, Mark. And, in those days I was full of piss and vinegar. So I said, well, that sounds like a proper adventure. So I get to the border, and sure enough, there's the trail going through the jungle right next to the beautiful Mekong River. Just a wild, wild river, huge. And I go, that's me, so I get on it. I go about half a mile, and the trail's okay, and then it gets really bad. And I very quickly realized this would be okay for a mountain bike or to hike on, not for motorized travel, And so I go down this really steep hill, and then I forward my bike through one of the tributaries going into the Mekong, and it's like knee deep. And And I said, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done. And now I'm at the point of no return because the hill that I went down was so steep. There's no way I could ride my bike back up it or even push my bike. So anyways, I had this ridiculous notion that if I came to an area that was too deep to cross or too steep, I'm going to just abandon my moped in the jungle and I'm going to hike out. I'm going, and the hours are slipping by, and I'm smoking opium. I'm in this like reverie. It was so pretty. And I'm going down a hill, and this like cobra comes out, and I almost run over the thing and slam my brakes and Superman over the handlebars and almost broke my shoulder, landed right next to a rock, and the snake squiggles away. And my bike is all scraped up. And I'm thinking, I don't want to be here in the dark. This trail better be getting somewhere and better be getting somewhere fast. So then the trail gets worse and worse, and it gets to the point, I have pictures of it where the jungle is so dense and vines coming down. I got my one hand on the throttle, and the other hand I'm just kind of like wiping the vines away, and still like terrified a snake is going to come down or something. So I kind of, it's starting to get dark, and I come up to this plateau, and the bright red, huge Asian sun is setting right on the horizon, and it's casting these sun diamonds on the Mekong River, millions of the sparkling sun diamonds. And in that moment, the Mekong River was alive, and it was so pretty. And of course, I'm smoking opium, and and again, this is just innocent fun, I thought. You can't mess around with opiates, as you'll come to understand. So anyways, I continue. Now I'm really running out of gas. It's getting really dark. Boom. I hit the town. It was like the president came to the village. This lady actually gave me her baby, and she's taking pictures of me holding her baby. And people are touching me like I'm a ghost. It's very remote. It's just this little village. I don't think that they had seen any white people there. So anyways, end up, doing the loop, and I go down to Vientiane, and I got to get back to the USA. So my flight was out of Vietnam. So I hole up in a hotel for 3 days and go through the poppy tea withdrawals and the opium withdrawals. Anyways, end up taking a bus to Hanoi, fly back to the US. And after that experience, I was like all in with the poppy tea and any kind of opiate I could get, but still heroin was the red line I'm never going to cross. So about a year later, I say I want another opiate adventure. So I had saved up some money, so I quit that job, and I flew to India. And I'm in New Delhi, and I asked the taxi driver where I could get some drugs, some opiates. And he brought me to the slums, and I went into this apartment, and there's like 4 Indian guys hanging out, and there's like barren of any furniture, not even curtains or a chair, and there's just a toolbox in the middle of the room. And I said, I want some opium. And they open up the toolbox, and it's like the Pulp Fiction briefcase. The light shines out of it, and there's every drug and syringes and this and that. And they're really trying to push heroin on me. And I'm like, no, I just want some opium. So I got some opium, got some hash too, and ended up spending 6 weeks, just backpacking around India. Went up to Varanasi, where they burn the bodies along the Ganges River, which is spiritual capital of India, and God, just very, very special place. You take a train all the way to Pakistan. I'm going to go into Pakistan, but I'm like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. So anyways, I end up hitchhiking to Nepal, and I get to Kathmandu, and I'm asking for drugs, and again, everyone's pushing heroin. And finally someone said, if you go to this refugee camp, outside on the outskirts of Kathmandu, you can get whatever you want. So I'm walking around like, a tall white guy walking around this refugee camp, and I finally, just ridiculous, end up scoring some opium, and I decided to go for a hike through the Himalayan mountains and spent about 15 days without a guide. I got on the Annapurna trail. So I'm going by the 3rd highest mountain in the world. It's not It's not in the same part of the country as Everest. It's in a different part, but some of the highest peaks in the world. And I'm smoking opium and just hiked up and over this pass. I was 18,000 feet, and I'm smoking opium at 18,000 feet. Still, this is all just innocent fun. So anyways, fly back to the USA, and that's where I took a left turn, tried heroin. I crossed the fucking red line that I said I'm never going to cross, and I've never injected. I always smoked it. And I made a mistake, and it ruined me. It fucking killed me financially, spiritually, physically. You know, my relationships went to shit. And, that first time I smoked heroin, talk about tiptoeing through the tulips, holding Jesus Christ's hand with unicorns prancing around. I mean, it's nobody should know your brain and your body can feel that good because it's hard to walk away from that. But so I spent 5 years chasing that virgin high and really pissed off all the time, really grumpy. People stopped hanging out with me. I just wasn't fun. I was either high and just goofy or pissed off and trying to hook up. And I'm trying to convince myself that I'm not a heroin addict and that, I can quit any time. But then, as I said, now you're just smoking it to be normal. And then the months go by and now you're just smoking it. All you're getting is the ability to not be sick. And it's so evil. Heroin, fentanyl, now it's all fentanyl, right? But all the opiates, they trick your mind into thinking it's as vital to your survival as food, water, and oxygen. It gets into your psyche, and you feel like you have to keep doing this. So, I started I'm working 40 hours a week, and then I'm spending 30 or 40 hours a week, always trying to hook up. You're dealing with dangerous people. It was this endless cycle of always hooking up, and and the years go by, and I'm losing weight, and my personality was so fundamentally changed, and but nobody knew, and I could always make an excuse like, Steve, why are you so skinny? Well, I'm a vegetarian. You just say, I just saw you eating a cheeseburger. No, that was a veggie burger. Well, there was blood dripping out of it. Oh no, that was just ketchup. I could. Why are you broke? Well, I just bought a $4,000 mountain bike. Well, where is it? Oh, my friend's borrowing it. I was the king of deception because I needed to protect my habit because heroin had turned into my best friend, my wife, my confidant, my entertainment, my soulmate, everything. It was everything wrapped up into this one entity. And so I just didn't even need relationships. This was the only relationship that I needed. So, I just a really quick story to give you an example of how much it changed my personality. I've always been very happy-go-lucky, always been a gregarious type of guy, life of the party. And, now I'm just so edgy and I was such an asshole. So this one morning, my dealer texts me and she said, I'm leaving for the weekend. You got 45 minutes to come here. And I'm like, oh, hold on, I got to go to the bank and cash my check. Just give me an hour. She's like, I'm leaving in 45 minutes. I got to go see my kids. And I had no idea she even had kids. So anyways, I'm like flying down. I was in the mountains in Salt Lake City renting a cabin. So I fly down, I'm running red lights, get to the bank, and there's 10 people in line. And she's texting like, I'm leaving in 10 minutes. So I walked in, I'm like, oh my God. And so I announced very loudly that I had a medical emergency and I need to cut the queue. I need to cut the line. Okay, fine. So I get to the front of the line and there's one teller and the lady is depositing like $600 in nickels into her account. She had like shoe boxes of change. And I'm braying like a donkey, like jumping up and down with impatience because I'm like, now I'm going to be sick all weekend. Anyways, finally, it's my turn. I go to cash my check, and the teller said, well, we have a problem here. I got to get on the phone and make sure this check is going to clear. Give me a minute. I go, no, you need to give me my money. And I would never, ever talk to somebody like that, but that's who I had become. So she's on the phone, and the minutes are ticking by. My dealer keeps texting me, like, you got 3 minutes. I'm leaving in 2 minutes. And so the bank manager comes out and he's like, sir, she's doing the best she can. And I said, well, her best is clearly not good enough and I need my money. I'm like freaking out. And he was just about to kick me out. And finally, a miracle. She hangs up the phone and goes, okay, everything's fine. Here's your money. And so I'm like running out of the branch and the manager goes, you're no longer welcome here. And I remember I turned around and I said, you're no longer welcome here. And he's like, never come here. And that just wasn't who I am. And I knew I was being an asshole. I just couldn't help it. And I was so grumpy for that 4 or 5 years. Except when I was high, but then the high is only 10 minutes. It used to be a couple hours. So anyways, 2 things happened that made me realize I had to quit. And I'll wrap up the story here soon. My friend died of a fentanyl overdose through cocaine, which was pretty crazy. Really good friend. It was tragic. And then I almost OD'd. What happened was, my friend Dagny came over with my ex-girlfriend came over with a 12-pack of beer. You don't drink and do opiates. They go together like oil and vinegar. It's 2 depressants and it makes it can stop your heart. And so I learned very, very quickly, like even 1 beer, you're just going to waste your high. You just pass out. So anyways, she brings over a 12-pack. She drinks 3, I drink 9. She leaves. I hadn't been drunk in years, and now I'm drunk, making bad decisions, and I smoked this huge chunk. And as soon as I finished, I said, oh man, that was a really big mistake. I've had a lot of beer tonight. I don't know what's going to happen. All of a sudden, my heart almost stopped beating. It's like every 10 seconds, just this very light pulse. And I lay down on the couch and I'm closing my eyes. And as I was falling asleep, this voice starts screaming in the back of my mind. If you fall asleep, you're never going to wake up. And I was like, I'm going to die, And I felt so bad, not for myself so much. The trail of devastation and pain and destruction, even though my friends had all kind of dropped me, I still had a lot of friends who cared for me, and my family and my dad, brother-in-law, sister, nephews, my stepmother, and how much pain I'm going to leave behind. And now I'm just another fucking dumbass who managed to overdose on heroin. Now I'm one of the 100,000. So I open up my eyes and I'm poking my eyeballs with my fingertips. I'm turn on the radio as loud as it can go. And I'm falling asleep. So I go outside and I maybe if I walk around the block and I fall on the sidewalk and I'm falling, I'm just nodding out. So I take my phone out and I call 911 and I'm about to hit send. And I said, okay, when I hit send, shit's about to get real. I don't know, am I going to get arrested after they come and save my life with a narcon? And it was a road I didn't want to go down. I don't like interactions with police. I just wasn't sure. So I'm like, all right, let me try one more time. And I still had 911 dialed and my thumb is over send. If I fall asleep, I'll hit send. And I get up and like a newborn giraffe, I'm just walking down the sidewalk. And the only thing, Mark, that kept me alive that night was thinking about the pain I was going to leave behind. And it was just a stubbornness where I just said, I'm not going to die. 30 minutes go by. My heart rate actually starts kicking up. I stayed up till 6 in the morning. I was scared to go to bed. And so now I know there's an expiration on my life or the heroin. I can't, one is going to end. One has to end. So I take a shower one morning and I get out of the shower and I took a really hard, good look at myself, and I was emaciated. I was like Joaquin Phoenix in the Joker, just grotesque. And I weighed myself, and I weighed 153 pounds, and I hadn't weighed myself in a long time. So I've always weighed exactly 205. And I'm like, I lost 25% of my body, like a goddamn magic trick. Where'd my body go? But the worst part was my eyes were so sunken in. They just looked like a zombie. They were dead. They weren't even blue. They were just these dead eyes. So I get in this argument with this man in the mirror, this doppelganger, this zombie. It wasn't me. And I'm like, I fucking hate you. And I realized that the opiates, my addiction, was giving me so much shame that I was beginning to hate myself, and I was just so very tired from always trying to hook up and living this lie. And the guy in the mirror said, well, I love you, and I want to keep living. And so I said, all right, you know what? I'm going to do this person in the mirror an extraordinary favor. I'm going to save their life. I don't know who this person is. I'm going to save your life. And I'm not going to do methadone. I don't want to get on the methadone merry-go-round because that creates its own problems. And some people are on methadone for 10 years. And it works for them. I'm going to cold turkey. So I lock the door, lower the blinds, smash my phone, which is very important, so I couldn't call my dealer. And I lay down in bed. So I'm not going to explicitly endorse cold turkey. It's rare, but you can die. Your sodium levels spike because you're so severely dehydrated. So really, you want to do it in a medical setting. But when I made that decision, I was just done. So I gutted out for 3.5 days. You know, heroin withdrawals, they're worse than anyone can describe. Your fingernails hurt, your teeth hurt, your hair hurts, your thoughts hurt. Every atom in your body, every molecule is this glowing coal of pain and anger, and it fucking hurts. And the worst is you're spasming because your nerve endings are all messed up. And it's not fun, to say the least. And I was trying to watch TV, and even it hurt my eyeballs to try to like focus on the TV. So anyways, laid in bed for 3.5 days, and it was very painful. And all of a sudden I got through it, and I stopped puking, and I stopped sweating, and I stopped shaking, and I go outside. And I start crying, and I'm walking around the block. I hugged a tree. I was like, squinting at the sun because I'd been inside for 3.5 days with the blinds drawn. And I go back inside, and it smelled like death. It smelled like somebody had died. And I realized somebody did die, and it was a part of me that needed to die so the rest of myself could continue to live. Like a guy who's got gangrene infection has to chop off his arm. That's what it was. I chopped off the infection. I killed the part of me that needed to die so the rest of me could survive. So I clean up. I'd missed a couple of days of work. I go to work, and I'm like, do I still have a job? And they said, yeah. I said, well, good, but I'm going to quit. I'm giving my 2 weeks notice, and things happen very quickly. I started living with a purpose. And I'm like, I want my time back. I just wasted 10 years. I'm going to do something awesome. Let's go to Vietnam. Let's go teach English. I've always been fascinated with Southeast Asia. So I decided I'm going to move to Vietnam and become an English teacher. I put all my possessions in my truck. Didn't have many left because I sold everything. And I'm driving across country to park at my stepmom's garage in Massachusetts and then fly to Vietnam. And I'm outside of St. Louis. It was horrible pain, and it came on quick. And I was having trouble breathing, and it was like, I thought it was a heart attack. And I'm like, no, it's my lung. And I clear my throat, and all this blood comes out of my mouth. And I'm like, oh, God, now what? I go to the house. I go right to the emergency room, and the doctor said, you have the worst case of bacterial pneumonia infection in your right lung that I've ever seen. And thank God you came in. You would have died. And I realized that was heroin's final fuck you. That was the parting gift, the parting jab. And so anyways, got on the antibiotics, and I was fine. Fly to Vietnam. Now things are happening really quick. I meet a beautiful nurse. Started making love. Heroin decimates your sex drive, so I hadn't had sex in like 5 years. And so now I'm making love to a beautiful woman. I have this awesome apartment in a very nice part of Hanoi, and I get a job teaching English to 12-year-old kids. I'm going to bars at night and nightclubs and dance clubs, and I'm just celebrating life. Like I felt like I got this second chance at life. And everything was going really, really good. And then just one day, my friend had 2 days off, and my friend just happened to mention over breakfast that you could buy morphine. He goes, at that pharmacy right there, they sell morphine. It's not over the counter, and you have to like kind of ask for it, but they have every drug you could imagine. And so I'm like, instantly I said, okay, I'm going to do morphine. So I went to the pharmacy. I was like, it's not technically a relapse because it's morphine. So I have like 10 pills of 35 milligram morphine, pure medicinal grade tablets. I go to my apartment. I just laid in bed for 2 days. That's my relapse. And I would just wake up, take 2 or 3 pills, chase it down with a beer. So I fell asleep for like 2 days. And I woke up, and it was like muscle memory. I get back on my bike. This is what you do. I'm out. Now I go re-up. That's what you do. And I realized that the high wasn't good. It didn't fit me anymore. It was like a T-shirt that shrinks in the dryer, and it's your favorite T-shirt, but it's too tight. And I realized I had outgrown this. This wasn't for me anymore. Never relapse again, and that was it. Anyways, COVID comes around, and so I fly home. And my stepmother was gracious enough to let me live there. I didn't really know what to do. And so I got all this free time on my hands. So as one of the final steps of my recovery, I decided I'm going to write a book and really come clean and talk about the more disgusting aspects of heroin addiction that I'm going to spare you the details of. But it's pretty gross, pretty raw, pretty vulnerable. So I wrote this book over COVID. It's called Can You See Me Up Here? And it's kind of a metaphor, can you see me up here? How we look at addicts, but we kind of look through them. We just want to ignore the problem. They're just sort of like, I don't want to see this person. So anyways, I finish up the book, and I decide I'm going to move, almost done with the book. Anyways, I moved back to Utah and get an apartment. And I go to Walmart, and I knew this was going to fucking happen. I go to Walmart to get some stuff, and I run into my old dealer. We always used to meet at the Walmart parking lot, and I knew I was going to run into her. So I'm just wheeling around my cart, grabbing toiletries, and I see her, and she comes up and tries to give me a hug, and I just put my hand up, and she's like, still trying to hug me, and I'm like, no. She goes, where have you been? We thought you died, like you just disappeared. I swear to God, I could smell it on her, and I was flush with cash. And I said, if I say one word to her, I'm gonna hook up. I just leave my cart, turn around, and walk out of the Walmart parking lot. And that's when I knew that I'd finally slayed the dragon, and that I was clean, and now I can't relapse. It'll be the literal equivalent of a loaded gun to my head. I can't, and I don't want to. And after writing Can You See Me Up Here, I'd be the world's biggest hypocrite talking about drug addiction and recovery, and then I relapse. So now everything's good. I was able to mend a lot of those relationships that I had damaged. I have a beautiful girlfriend. And I'm in a much better place. I'm California sober, so I still drink and smoke a little bit of weed occasionally. But opiates were the one, that was the one that was going to kill me. So again, I thank you, Mark, for your time. And if the one thing that you remember about this, the opposite of addiction is connection. So if you're an addict, connect. And if you're friends with an addict, connect with them. And that could, you could save a life. Who knows? So I thank you for your time, and thanks for being patient with my story, Mark.
Thank you, Steve. It was great.
Cool.